Welcome back to the Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast. Today, we're diving into the captivating realm of AI implementation with two brilliant minds, Tim Keefe and Andreas Wieman. We'll explore the opportunities and challenges in this dynamic field. Buckle up for a thought-provoking conversation that could reshape your outlook on the future. Let's dive right in.
Hey team, welcome to another exciting and engaging conversation with two guys called the Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast. I'm here with my co-host Tim Keefe. Tim, you want to let them know what we're going to talk about today?
That was actually pretty cognate. I'm not at my best this morning, I guess. I think thanks again for the intro, and thanks again for everybody joining. It's getting exciting that some of the topics that we're being able to bring forward here. And I think we had such a great conversation last week with Gabby Steele. But today we're really interested to talk about something that's more like a headline item. This last week, there was an article published in Inc. about an AI project by a company called Klarna. So this is a financial services group. It's out there in Inc. if you want to take a look at it. But what they were able to do in the headline was implement some AI chatbots that were then able to, in 4 weeks' time, process 2.3 million conversations with customers over a 4-week period of time. I think what they said that was the equivalent of 700 employees. Right. Huge impact to their business from a standpoint of saying, wow, that was 700 people I didn't have to have on my payroll and all the fun that comes with that. Now replaced by a technology that doesn't get tired, is less likely to error due to all the human factors that we have as people. So very, very exciting from that point. But also what I thought was really fascinating, and you had brought it up to me, was holy crap, the impact this had at a stock price on the traditional big BPO companies that are primarily labor driven. In some cases, the stock prices are, well into double-digit declines. And I think a lot of this is this recognition that customer experience driven by cheap labor is evolving. And again, how these guys did this, Claire, and I think we're going to spend quite a bit of time on this conversation today. This was not, hey, we bought the technology on Friday, turned it on over the weekend, and on Monday we started getting a 20% or 23% reduction in contact volumes that we hadn't handled by people. No, that's not what happened. In fact, there was a lot of work that went into making that bot effective so they could handle those volumes. And in fact, one of the big things that I thought was pretty amazing is they trained for 9 months. And for those of us that are in the contact center industry, we kind of go, when we provide staff, we're lucky if we get 5 days or 40 hours of training on products and services. And so here you have a situation where they took 9 months and got incredible results, which of course, if we could train our staff for 9 months, we'd probably get results, but they would probably be more expensive. So I think the interesting thing here is, AI, which we've been talking about for almost 2 years now, well, much longer than actually, but it's been hyped very much over the last 2 years with generative AI. They used an open AI solution, ChatGPT Enterprise. And there's a lot of good content here about what it takes to actually make an effective implementation that drives a good customer experience that ties directly to the business outcome of lowering my cost to serve and improving those the customer experience. Now, what they didn't do in here, and would be interesting to follow up, is to say, how does this tie to those overall business outcomes of customer attrition, repeat business, and growth? But at the very least, for a 4-week project, this is pretty awe-inspiring. So, I mean, yeah. You and I have been babbling about this for the last couple of days, but it does beg the question: how do companies that, first off, I think a lot of companies don't spend as much time on customer experience. I mean, I just had a conversation this week with a client or potential client that is in the retail business, and they still take their 1-800-X calls and route them to the local store. And I was kind of like stunned a little bit, because you go, who still does that? But apparently a lot more people than we realize. And so anyway, I mean, as you think about this Claire article and the impact it had, I think in the business that we came out of BPO, what are your thoughts?
Oh, is it going to be my turn? I thought you were just going to keep going. It was going to be a solo podcast today.
No, I'm sorry. That's all yours, my friend.
No, but at least it was all, or half of it was pretty spot on. But yeah, no, I think the hype around Klarna, and we'll link to the article too in the podcast. I think it's something real. Like, everybody's been really excited about ChatGPT. I mean, that's been in the news cycles for months now, going on a year, right? And it's cool to get in there and play with ChatGPT and see what it generates, and other LLMs that are being developed, and just the hype that's there. But this is practical application of it, and I think the association it takes with the amount of time that Klarna partnered with ChatGPT on, and fine-tuning this and going through synthetic data training cycles to make sure that this bot was ready. Like you said, it was about an 18-month period, at least from the knowledge that we have sitting on the outside. Maybe it was a little bit shorter, maybe longer, I'm not really sure. But if you go back I want to say about a year, maybe to 18 months, maybe around the same time, there was also, Klarna was in the news for reducing jobs. And so, I don't think it's coincidence that they put this technological project, at the focus on it tremendously, and then be able to operationalize this back in front of their customers where they saw there was an opportunity. And to your point, I would love to see customer lifetime cycle value, repeat contact rates, customer sentiment, and things like that. And I think that will come with time. But for them to be able to put this into practice and be able to quantify the equivalency of 700, FTEs, and what they're projecting out is a $40 million straight profit of reduction in labor, what I'm assuming is going to be largely in reduction in labor costs because of this bot's pretty exciting. And yeah. I think what this does is in the CX world, it says, all right, we're going to be able to train this bot. They're going to be able to handle highly voluminous contacts that have a certain level of, I want to say, simplicity. And the reason why I'm saying simplicity is you've got to code the bots and train the bots to be able to be very, very repetitive in nature. Sometimes that's going to take out, or actually, I don't want to say sometimes, largely it's going to take out the easier interactions that the bot's going to handle, leaving you with the less need of humans, but leaving much more complicated customer situations for these humans to handle now. So I would love to see what kind of augmentation that Klarna is going to be using for the more complex issues now that are going to be left with the employees there.
Well, they did say in the article that, these were primarily what I would call transactional contacts, right? So they can't do approvals for funds, but they can do, probably like requests for refunds and returns, et cetera, which, in a lot of our business, I always look at these contact types as three types. There's the general, what do you sell? Informational, hours of operations, et cetera. Which in many cases, you almost want to point them back to your website or just, here it is, and that's conditional logic. It's been around for quite a while in various IVRs, both voice and digital. But then you have this concept of, other types of transactional stuff, which we just talked about. And then to your point, now where do we get into the consultative engagement, which at some point, bots, as they become more and more sophisticated and more accurate, get to your accuracy level and at the point that it's equivalent to a human, you may bring some bots into it. But that's going to be interesting. And I think that's a very significant level of sophistication. You've got to build out your LLM. You've got to have that accuracy in that database that supports the AI calls to that database, because at that point, you can't get it wrong. But it's coming. It's just a question of, and I do think this is where human beings still have the benefit of being a little bit more quick on their feet from a standpoint of maybe even predicting what people are going to ask for next based on where the conversation has gone. But more importantly, and this is, we're just working on a project with another client here, is where I think people need to be leveraging some of the video tools, because in a consultative conversation, being able to see the person or read the room has a lot to do with how people build trust and confidence in what they're being told. Give you an example. We're working on a client, one client that's in the retail business. So in retail, a lot of it is what's the status of my order, or I want to order something, or I ordered it, didn't arrive, those types of things, very transactional. But then there's the, hey, I see on your website, there's 8 different products that are kind of in the same area of solving my problem. We did work for a big pet retailer a long time ago now, 9 years ago. And this was a big question, like, my dog, different types of dog food, right? And getting on a contact with somebody that can be consultative and say, well, now you bring it up, this was an organic one, this is this. And what we're seeing is what we're hearing from our customers is they really like this one. A lot of dogs seem to go in this direction, but there are some downsides. If your dog is diabetic or whatever, you maybe want to be aware of that. That kind of consultative engagement is very difficult to replicate, and also brings your employees, whether they're your contract or your direct captive employees, really up a scale into being knowledge workers. And that's where their tenure and their experience is really, really critical. And in some cases may take years of experience to be at the level that creates that confidence with a customer. So, which then leads...
I think, no, sorry, hold on. That's a really good point though, because I think that's where I see probably the biggest area of opportunity. You've got a lot of really intelligent, smart folks that sit within, I'm just gonna call it reporting ambiguously, right? And so what I mean by reporting is being able to look at some of the, grabbing the disparate data, being able to data warehouse it, data lake it, and then form it up in some usable type of form that they think is usable or useful. Then you've got the business side who, like you just said, they want to figure out how they have revenue generation. So if we can sell more, going back to your example on the dog food, how do we sell more of this particular dog food? And so when you have those two parties talking to each other in understandable terms, right? Because if you picture them on a spectrum, they're on opposite ends of the spectrum usually, but they're both highly intelligent individuals. And when you find that medium that you just described with the knowledgeable frontline staff, they can help bridge that gap for figuring out how to operationalize these all of this new AI and ML approach. I think much quicker in an expedited fashion, because they're able to position it to the reporting teams, right? The ones that's doing all the coding and data grabbing and parsing and cleaning, et cetera, in the background. But they can tell them what's meaningful outcomes in this data that you need to have good data visualization, or just good hard data to be able to make business decisions from a predicative standpoint. That's where I think there's a huge opportunity in the market right now to start accelerating some of these efforts and conversations that are underway, very similar to the Klarna situation that's going on right now.
Well, agreed. And I also think there's this kind of bridging point where maybe we have AI that's directly facing the customer for those transactional contacts, or a subset of those transactional contacts. Just like what Klarna did, they don't allow the bot to do any approval of funds. That's got to get a human being involved. But then the next step is, how do I take maybe they are good, tenured people, they're good, but they're not directly ready. They don't have all the experience. They can't operate off their own personal knowledge. How do we make them better with an AI that's supporting them, so that they're contextually exactly, so they're being augmented. So you can take an employee that maybe instead of having 10 years of experience has a year of experience, but with the AI, they're now at the same level as that, at a consultative level as that other employee.
What's great. I mean, just real quick on that same point, Tim, I would say, some free advice I'll give everyone listening right now.
Don't listen to our podcast.
Try to, yeah, exactly. Don't try to look at doing the, I guess the sexy thing of automating everything end to end, or making it 100% AI driven. Figure out right now within your current process, wherever your business is today, figure out where you can do what we call supervised machine learning. how can you figure out where you can augment even your reporting teams to start giving you better insights and data points that can run the business and manage the business more effectively and get to retroactive to more predictive, proactive state, and then do that one little step at a time, when and where you can, still augmenting that team. The same logic that you just applied to the frontline CX associate there, apply that internally to every person in your business. There's a way to augment individuals internally in every single department, including your cleaning staff in your facilities, in your buildings, frankly. So I think that's a really important point you made, Tim.
Yeah, no, well, thank you. And I think I'm going to write that down, actually, that you said that. And I was just thinking, as you were saying that.
You get one compliment a year, so it's on record now. So
no, you're right on that. But it's kind of fascinating when you think about that whole conversation about, well, I need to have the knowledge documented so that I can support either the bot or the human being, right? You and I have been around, like, I would say in many cases, like, the most important thing in a contact center is the thing that gets spent less on, which is knowledge management. And people go, oh yeah, we got a great knowledge base. It's huge. And you go, okay, so show me a search on one of the top most common intents, right? Like, it could be, I need to reset my password or whatever. And they'll do a search, agent will do a search, and they'll get 30 articles with the same title. And you go, okay, so so which one is the article that's the right one? Well, we all know it's the one that was done last. And I said, okay, but how do you know that? Well, that was in an email that got sent 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, okay, so I'm sorry, but like, I used to joke about, you walk into a contact center, and if you're inside of everybody's cubicle is like lined with Post-it notes, it tells you something.
It's tribal knowledge.
Exactly.
It's tribal knowledge. And that's where that logic, that applied logic that I think only humans can do, that's the value in augmenting the humans that are going to have to deal with more complex interactions. But you can automate 50% of that complexity and then give them the part that the human logic is needed at that AI can't make up for. But another interesting thing you just said on the knowledge base, right? If your company thinks you have a really good knowledge base, knowledge central, etc., then go turn AI on it, go turn ML. And I'm kind of, some of the reporting people and coding people are gonna like roll their eyes when I say this, because I'm saying this in a very simple way. Let's say you do a chatbot, go internally ring fence all of the data within your knowledge base and see what that bot tells you. That's what the scenario you just described, Tim, that's what our agents have to do, the frontline folks have to do today. And that's why they have their Post-it notes. So figure out, why it takes someone like Klarna 18 months, because even if you have what you think is a good knowledge base, when you have something that's conditionally programmed to go in there and try to search for answers using logic that you coded to look for, it's going to spit out. And that's why ChatGPT had some of the nonsense and babble that when it can't come to a conclusive answer there, it's going to start generating simulated data and answers and making stuff up. I challenge any company to
that's
go
my
out there
job. That's my job.
I know. Well, you're pretty good at it, so I don't think any AI can replace that. So,
thank you. That's 2 compliments in one call. We better stop here. What I like about this conversation, or I think is interesting about it, you and I, 7 years ago, were working with a client together in the Midwest, and well, actually, they were headquartered in New England, but it was this concept of, as you look at if you're in the BPO space, or if you're in an outside outsourcer who's helping companies deliver better customer experience. In today's world, it's an interesting world, right? You have technology providers that sell software as a service, or they sell contact center as a service, but that's a technology component of the stack, right? And then and they'll sell you a bot, but they won't. It's difficult for them because they don't know your business. It's to say, here's the bot that serves your customers in your industry for your products. They can't do that. Right. So that's a work level for you or somebody to do. And then the other piece, like what we're just talking about, and then you have labor providers, right? I mean, there's not that many anymore. It's been very consolidated, but a lot of those companies are very, very good at providing staff that can, be available and respond to digital requests or voice requests from your customers. Great, but here we have tools that are coming in, like the bot, what does it do, right? It's one, it never gets tired. Two, it can speak in 25 languages in digital environments, and it's always up. So you're 7 by 24 right off the bat. So your hours of operations expand. Your customer, if just by being available, your customer frustration will go down. But what you and I had talked about was it's not about technology or labor or processes, but it's how do you bring all of those together to offer a service as a service, or a customer experience outcome as a service. And I think this is where, I mean, I'm a little bit of selling here, but this is where we're kind of leaning in as Transform CX, and have been for a long time, in that we're here to help our clients look at that mix of saying, at the end of the day, what I care about is the business outcome. And the business outcomes, I'll just pick one, and generally we look at cost to serve, and we look at things like customer churn. I'm not saying every company does the same thing, but those are two big ones, right? Like, I want to keep the customers that I have because they're extremely expensive to acquire new ones. And two, I want to, wherever possible, reduce the cost to serve those customers while increasing or not losing any of the outcome. Now, that means you got to come at the problem. It's a multivariable problem, right? It's like, how much of this should be done, with technology? How much should it be done in digital channels? How much should be done with human beings? And that, by the way, it's a mix that will evolve over time, because just as you described, through machine learning and supervised learning, we should be able to bring more bots and more AI into the mix, and maybe keep our human staff flat while we're growing our business. And then, hey, that's a really interesting conversation for a client to be able to talk to and say, hey, look, if we come at this with an evolutionary view that we're going to start here, which may be a higher mix of humans in the mix, because we don't have the automation in place, and we need the human brain power to bridge some of these knowledge gaps that we talked about. And then over time, as we introduce the bots, like that 9-month period of time, right, that Claire did, then we can start saying, okay, maybe we don't attrit our humans, but we don't hire net new ones, right? We allow that team to stay flat or continue to decline through natural attrition. And then we pick up the slack with technology. And if we're doing that right, and by the way, technology costs have come down dramatically. I remember you and I being on a call, and we had these AI guys, and I said, the cost of the AI exceeds the cost of the labor. So you're putting me in a very awkward selling position here. You're actually increasing my cost to serve with a longer training time, and yeah. So anyway, I think this concept of how I think the whole industry really needs to evolve, and I think we're seeing that, whether this is a tipping point or not. But I think that the impact on stock prices over this last week on traditional labor BPO companies has been a telling point. And I'm intrigued to see how those companies respond to that. It's going to be, this is a very, very fast, we say this every year, right? It's going to be an interesting year. Last year was AI. I think this year, maybe it's going to be about CX as a service, or really AI implementation, like not just the hype, but what does it really mean?
Yeah. How do you put it into practice, and how do you drive it to an outcome? I mean, anybody can put it into practice, but if it's an expensive practice, given the global economy right now, there's not going to be a lot of folks that have money to be able to take chances like that. So how do you implement it practically? And then how do you measure that objectively and figure out, quickly, is it worth the investment, and what other tweaks do you have? So we need to figure out, and I think this is where a lot of, at least companies that I'm consulting with right now, how do we operationalize things like in 30-day cycles and 60-day cycles? We don't have an elongated period anymore. We got to figure out now with all of this technology, how can we make better decisions that have a higher probable positive outcome quicker, and then iterate on that as we go forward. That's what I think we're going to see a lot in 2024, with a 2025 that's going to be in a much more mature state than we're seeing right now. I still think there's going to be a lot of experimentation in 2024.
But I actually think this has been true for a while. Like I used to say to people, if you have projects where you can't get to an implementation or measurable outcome within 2 quarters, don't bother, because nobody can wait that long. The days where you're going to spend 18 months or 2 years building your roadmap, it's ridiculous. Nobody's going to do that anymore. In fact, when I go in and say it's going to take 8 weeks to get to a roadmap, that right there is it's a difficult one. And but a lot of that assumes access to information, et cetera. But anyway, I think this is key, and I think one of our guests we need to get in here in the next couple of weeks, and we've got a few people that I think would be interesting to talk to, is on a couple of the threads that we kind of linked here. One is AI itself. Two are data and data support for LLMs, and I think Gabby Steele at Prequel would be a great guest around that. And then there's actually the digital journey design. What does that look like, as we go into this? And even though it's in chat, you and I both know that there's appropriately implemented conversation and there's garbage conversation. And when people get a garbage conversation, they drop out. And now you get a really frustrated client and you have less people to deal with those escalations. So you got to get it right. And I think that digital conversational design is going to be another interesting topic. So with any, hopefully we haven't lost everybody on this call. We get excited about this stuff. It's our bread and butter, and we're passionate about what we do. Please subscribe, and we'd love to have you, if you have comments and questions, this will be published on our YouTube channel, and feel free to ask those questions. It'll also be up on our LinkedIn profile as well, and comments and questions are always welcome there. So we'd love to hear from you. If you have other topics you'd like to hear us talk about, or people that you'd like to hear, or at least industries you'd like to hear at the call, please let us know.
Yep. No, great. I appreciate it, Tim. I think we had a good discussion today. I'm looking forward to future podcasts. We'll have Gabby back so we can iterate a little bit more on this topic. But nonetheless, I think it's some pretty exciting times ahead for this.
Same. I agree. I really do think the next couple of quarters with this AI stuff, and people are going to wake up and go, "Holy crap, we got to do it differently." And I think now's the time. All right. With that, everybody, have a great day, and we really appreciate your attention. Thank you so much. Take care. This is Tim, and
take care. This is Andreas. We'll talk to you guys soon.